Factoring ax squared plus bx plus c. Our objective is to factor quadratic trinomials of the form ax squared plus bx plus c. Why learn this? The height of a football that has been kicked can be modeled by the factored polynomial. Let's take a look at an example first. So when factoring ax squared plus bx plus c, when c is positive, we do have to pay attention to the fact that we now have an a value. We have a value before our x squared, a coefficient, if you will. Therefore, we have to take that into account. So when we do so, we're going to set up a table as follows. So factors of a, so your first value, factors of c, your last value, and then if you add the outside plus the inside, you should end up with your c value. So there are only one set of factors of 2, and that's 1 and 2. However, there are quite a few factors of 12. For example, we could have 1 and 12. The tricky part is this outer plus inner piece. You're going to take the two outside terms, so 1 and 12, multiply them together. And then you're going to take the two inner terms, so 2 and 1 right here, and you're going to multiply them together. Once you have your outer and your inner, you're going to add them. In this case, it equals 14, not the 11 we're looking for. So we keep trying some different ones until we end up with the one we're looking for. So in this case, 1 and 2, and 4 and 3. 1 times 3, so those are our outer, that gives us 3. And then 2 times 4, that's our inner, that gives us 8. So 3 plus 8 is 11. That's our b value. Now we have one more step. We simply have to write this as two binomials being multiplied to each other. So with our first column, we have a 1 and a 2. That's going to go in the first place of each binomial. So we have 1x and 2x. And then our last term here, or factors of 12, are going to make up our last spot in our two binomials, so 4 and 3. You can always double check your work. When you do, you're going to multiply the first binomial by the second, and you should end up getting what you started with. Now let's try writing an example out from beginning to end. So we have our factors of a, our factors of c, and then the outer plus the inner must equal negative 14. I will often even write it has to equal negative 14 here. Alright, so factors of 5. Well, we only have 1 and 5 that we can worry about. However, there are a few different factors of 8. So let's try 1 and 8. Okay, so if we do our outer, so 1 times 8, that gives us 8, plus our inner, so that's our 5 times 1 here, that's going to give us 5, and 8 plus 5 is 13. That's not negative 14. It's not even negative at all. That means that you should probably make sure that one of these things is going to end up being negative. However, can you make one of these terms negative and not the other? No, because then you wouldn't have a positive 8. So they would both have to be negative. Alright, so let's try it. So we have 1 and 5, since those are our only factors of 5 that we can work with. And let's try saying negative 1 and negative 8, because negative 1 times negative 8 is still going to give us a positive 8 here, but might help us get this negative we're looking for. So once again, we have our outer, so that's going to be negative 8 plus negative 5. Well, now we have a negative 13, not quite negative 14, so that's not going to work. So why don't we try a 2 and a 4? Once again, we want to make sure that they're both negative, so we end up with a negative b value. So we're going to have negative 2 and negative 4. And 1 and 5 are still going to be the ones we use for this one. So we multiply our outside, or our outer ones. So 1 and negative 4 gives us negative 4. Plus, and then we have 5 times negative 2. That's our inner. So negative 10. And hey, that gives us negative 14. That's exactly what we were looking for. Last step, we must place these into our binomial. So our factors of 5, they went with our x squared, so they're going to make up our first set of terms in each binomial. So we're going to have 1x and 5x, and then our factors of 8 are going to make up the second term. So we have a minus 2 and a minus 4. You can always double check. So x times 5x is 5x squared. Then we have minus 4x minus 10x, giving us our negative 14x. And then we have negative 2 times negative 4, which gives us our positive 8. So yep, if we multiply it out, we go back to what we started with. Try this next one on your own. When you return to the video, the answer will be revealed below. And there you have it. Now let's take a look at how to factor ax squared plus bx plus c when c is negative. When c is negative, one factor of c will be positive and the other factor will be negative. Only some of the factors are shown in the examples, but you may need to check all possibilities. Alright, so we still set up our columns the same way. So our factors of a, our factors of c, outer plus inner, and I always put in this equals our b value, which happens to be 7. The only difference between the last ones we did and these ones are these negative values here. So we have a negative c. Alright, so factors of 4, 1 and 4. And then factors of negative 2 could be 1 times negative 2, because a positive times a negative is a negative. And then you still do the same method. The outside, so 1 times negative 2 is negative 2, and 4 times 1 is 4, so, well, we got 2, not 7. If we try this bottom one, we have 1 and 4, and then 2 and negative 1. So 1 times negative 1 is negative 1, and then 4 times 2 is 8, giving us our 7. Once again, the factors of a make up your two first pieces of both binomials, so your y and your 4y, and then the factors of negative 2, or your c value, are going to make up the second pieces of each binomial. You can always check your work and distribute across, and you should end up back where you started. Let's try one. So we want factors of 4 and factors of negative 5, but when you add the outside plus the inside, you want that to equal 19. So factors of 4, why don't we go with 1 and 4, and then we can try negative 1 and 5. So our outside will give us 5 plus negative 4, which will give us 1. Not what we want. So let's try another one. Well, what if we had 1 and 4, and then what if we switched these around? So we had 5 and negative 1. It might help us make our number a little larger. So our outer, so that's going to give us negative 1, and then our inner, 4 times 5 is 20. Hey, that gives us 19. So now we're on our last step. We just have to set it all up. So these go into our first positions here. So 1x and 4x. And then these make up our second position. So it's a positive 5 and a negative 1. Try this next one on your own. When you return to the video, the answer will be revealed below. And there you have it. Now let's try factoring ax squared plus bx plus c when a is negative. When you factor out negative 1 in an early step, you must carry it through the rest of the steps. So if you factor out a negative 1, you now have 2x squared plus 15x plus 7, because you're changing each of the signs. And then you're just going to simply factor this 2x squared plus 15x plus 7. And this negative 1, you're just going to kind of keep rewriting it at the very end. So we want factors of 2 and factors of 7, and then when you add the outer plus the inner, you want 15. So the same method applies as soon as you've taken out this negative 1. So 1 and 2, and 7 and 1, and 1 times 1 is 1, and 2 times 7 is 14. Together they make 15. That's what we're looking for. So once again, your factors of A make up your first two pieces of each binomial, and the factors of C are going to make up the second places in each binomial. Remember to rewrite the negative 1 when you're done. Let's try one together. So we want to factor out a negative 1. So we factor out a negative 1, leaving us with 6x squared plus 17x plus 12. We're now going to factor just this piece here. So you want your factors of 6, you want factors of 12, and then you want your outer plus your inner to equal a positive 17. So see if you can come up with this part on your own. Alright, so now that you've figured out which factors are going to work, we can simply rewrite. So we've got our negative 1 out in front, and now we have our 2x plus our 3, and then we have our 3x plus 4. Remember, the 2 and the 3 from our A make up the first places, and the 3 and our 4 from our C make up the second places. Okay, so try this last example on your own. When you return to the video, the entire answer will be revealed below. And there you have it. This also ends our video on factoring ax squared plus bx plus c.